Go fish. Well, that's an issue. That equals more than 21. Hey guys, it's Alpaca. Welcome to the new year. It's 2026 and that means more videos. If you haven't kept up with my community tab, I'm planning on releasing at least one new video every month. I even put it on the new banner, peep the new drip. With that being said, if you have any video ideas, please let me know. I've been working out some ideas and throwing my sketches up on my brand new Patreon. For $5 to $10 New Zealand, you can get access to work in progress sketches, your name in the credits, and even 15% off my VGen commissions, which you should also check out. Please, I need money. Now, with all the self-promo done, let's get into why you're here. Dangan Ronpa redesigns. This is probably my last full-length video on this franchise, as I still love it to bits, but the stories and stress of having to keep up with all the students is crazy. Notice, however, that I said full length. I intend to keep this series on my shorts and Instagram posts, so don't fear, they're not going away forever. Plus, you can always watch this playlist here if you want to ever rewatch them all. But while we're here, we'll enjoy this final long redesign video with two of my favorite characters from the original game, Celestia Ludenberg and Sakura Ogami. By the way, I'm going to try and keep these a lot lighter than my normal videos, so I'll be self-censoring some of the details. Before I get onto the first design, I do not claim that I make better stories or designs. These are basically just my headcanons for these beloved characters, so how I changed them is to suit my own spin on the series. I love the original designs. These videos are just to show my appreciation for how this game franchise has shaped me as an artist. With all the yapping over, let's get on to my favoriteest character in the whole game. There's something so intriguing about Celeste and her design. She is the best one in the game by far, in my opinion. She instantly stands out amongst the students in more ways than one. The way she so desperately wants to escape from a so-called normal life that she'll kill over money. Just a very interesting character, hence why she's my favorite. Besides her gorgeous outfit. Despite this fact, I'll be mainly talking about her story rather than her design. But to be honest, when I was deep in the fandom, my only consumption of the games after watching them was art and fanfics, like many of you watching the video. Does mean my rewrite of her story will be almost purely fueled by non-canon things I've seen during my time. And I hope that's okay with you guys. I grew up hearing a lot about casinos and their innings, and considering I used to work for one, I have a bit of insight on gamblers. But with that, let's get into her brand new story. It's hard to determine what about Celestia's life is real. Over the years, she slowly erased her birth life from all public sources. Born as the only child in a so-called average family, Taiko Yasuhiro grew up as a pathological liar. I think that's the term, based on the research I did. She lied about every single thing in her life, and she was good at it. At school, she'd make her life seem more dramatic, heartbreaking. She even convinced her peers that her parents weren't the kindest, despite everything they did for her. It got to the point where she faked an entire new persona. Through some pretty shady means, she completely changed. New birth certificate, new appearance, new everything. She packed up the bare essentials, stole thousands from her parents, and left to live the life she always wanted. To be a vampiric queen from an unspecified country in Europe. And thus she adopted the name Celestia Ludenberg. She knew she couldn't achieve all her dreams with just the funds she stole alone, so Celeste decided to take advantage of her lying abilities and her connections through her identity change to take over the underground gambling rings. Over the course of her career, she managed to turn thousands into millions. It's unknown how long she'd been within the scene, but one day, after losing a hand during a high-stakes game of poker, her opponent revealed themselves to be an ultimate lucky student, and as a recruiter for Hope's Peak Academy. They offered for Celestia to not only keep her money, but possibly make even more, but only if she accepted their offer of joining the 78th class of Hope's Peak Academy as the ultimate gambler. In the original story, I really don't like how they used Celestia in the third trial, especially with her breakdown. Why did she fold so easily? My version is pretty similar to the original, but I amped up her lying and dramatics. Her design is so bold, she needs a personality to go with it. She's incredibly skilled in perception and also has a great deal of luck. With that, I'm going to describe her plan for both Trial 3 and 5. Wait, 2 trials? Keep watching and find out! But before that, please consider subscribing. We're so close to 20k, it really means a lot. In my last 2 Dangan Ronpa videos, I explained most of Trial 3, so this is kind of a recap and we'll go more over Trial 5. By the way, Byakuya is killed in Trial 2, so Celeste is actually the antagonist in my version. I imagine the killing games to be similar to Lord of the Flies, in a way where these kids are being left to their own devices and it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. Celestia banks off of this. Throughout the trial, she loved to mess with evidence and the students to make stakes more dramatic, and in a way, a gamble on her life. During Trial 3, everyone agreed to not kill, regardless of how tempting the motive was. And yet, Celestia used both Hifumi's and Chihiro's weaknesses, obsession and meekness, to try and get something exciting going. I won't go into details with it due to its contents, but I do explain it in this video. One thing she did not take into consideration in her original plan was that Higakure actually had a talent in clairvoyance and would interfere, and she managed to inadvertently kill 3 people with one plan. When the rest of the class discovered what Celestia caused, they were pissed. They already despised her for how she meddled with previous trials, but now that she killed 3 of their peers, she of course was ostracized, and Celeste's ego hated that. At least they paid attention to her before, but now she was being straight up ignored. She hid herself in her room trying to work out a plan to make them all regret it. On a side note, I want Mukuro to have a more prominent role. At this point in the story, she's finally been revealed as Mukuro during Trial 3, but she hasn't revealed anything besides the fact that she was dressed as her twin sister. The class was quite wary of her and tended to avoid her. In Chapter 5, however, she becomes significantly closer to the cast, as she was a big reason why they lived through Trial 4. Because they all got so much closer, and her crush on Makoto deepened, she was tempted to reveal the entire plan to the cast. And this is where Celeste comes back into play. Through the twisted view of Celestia, Mukuro felt like her replacement, and so behind the scenes, she worked out a plan with Monokuma to kill her. Celeste's ego was so hurt, she finally resorted to murder rather than her hands-free plan. It was perfect, because who would vote for Celestia if they thought she was dead? That's why Celeste stole Mukuro's identity. It's sort of funny. Mukuro, who had finally stepped out of her Junko persona, was killed and became a disguise for Celestia. Because they didn't have time to get to know Mukuro, it took until Celestia accidentally slipped up for them to realize something might be wrong with her. I imagine the trials will be mainly dedicated towards figuring out what's wrong with Mukuro and then breaking down Celeste's stories and character. I think it'd be really interesting for her to break over the course of it all and finally admitting to it, and being truthful about everything before she dies. Of course, she isn't redeemed, but it sort of grounds her a bit more. I don't have much of an idea for execution, as I think her original one is really cool. If you have any ideas, please let me know. I loved designing Celestia. I really wanted to lean more into the vampire gothic look rather than the Lolita, so she could be more European, as she would say. I had to keep her iconic twin drills, but other than that, her outfit is quite different. It's definitely a lot more form-fitting with a funky little corset that juts out at the waist. I wanted her design to have these big silhouette shapes so you can see her drills, of course, as well as the bell sleeves from her original design, her dress train, and the big bows on her hip and hair. Speaking of the bows, I had a couple of recurring themes in her outfit, these being the bows, spiderwebs, and catsuits. You can guess why the cards. But I wanted to keep some aspect of Lolita fashion, and I thought bows would do it perfectly. And spiderwebs. You of course got the saying web of lies, but I also think spiders are creepy and I wanted her to be a little creepy. To be honest, Celeste's outfit was just a self-indulgent design, as I don't really do these kinds of outfits. And yet, this was actually my second time redesigning her. Technically. I actually did it back when I had to redraw her execution for animation school. The speed paint for it was at the very beginning of this section. I actually prefer the previous version, but I felt as if it didn't fit her new story and version. Maybe they're both canon designs. Yeah, I like that. Finally, for her design, I just wanted to mention that she has no eyebrows. I think it's funny. It allows her to have a blanker face when she needs to. And that's Celestia Ludenberg. I think she has such a cool design, and I'm really happy with how she turned out. Is she how you thought she'd look? Or were you expecting something different? I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments or in my Discord. Link is in the description. But now we gotta get into the best girl in the game. Let's bring her out! I really do like Sakura, but I honestly forget she exists sometimes. Her original case doesn't have a proper execution, and her character just kind of falls behind in importance, despite being the traitor. I feel like the only stuff I ever saw of her was to do with Aoi, so because this is my channel and I can do what I want, Sakura is going to be half Pacific Islander, specifically Samoan. I just can't help myself. I love mixed race characters because it's like me, oh boy! But with this, she was surprisingly the hardest to do out of all of them. That's including Taka and Hifumi from the last video. So if you had to nitpick and improve any of them, please let it be Sakura. She deserves the best. But with enough yapping, let's get to her story, which ultimately isn't too different from her original. Sakura grew up surrounded by some of the best martial artists from all around the country, as her family owned one of the oldest dojos in Japan. She grew up as an only child, and her parents, while disappointed in not having a son, still loved and trained her regardless, even with their hesitations. Sakura, feeling responsible for not being a boy, trained incredibly hard. Day and night, she actively practiced everything she could, trying to improve and hopefully even surpass her parents. And boy did she! She'd always been rather different to her peers, a big reason being that she's part Samoan. Growing up, the other kids tended to be wary of her, and she often felt left out or wrong. While they never said anything to her face, she had heard the many names that the kids would call her when they thought she couldn't hear. She felt too big and manly at school, yet small and frail at home. She was stuck feeling the pressure of both viewpoints of herself. She ultimately decided to embrace her family's work. Practicing the various kinds of martial arts made her happy, and she wouldn't let a couple names get to her, even though it most definitely did. The more she trained, the more strange she was, the more names they called behind her back. But she was also incredible in various forms of martial arts, sweeping most competitions without breaking a sweat, figuratively. And yet, there was always that voice in the back of her mind, which kept reminding her of her errors. Not a boy, too muscular, too big. She decided that once she received a black belt in the final art she had been training for, she would quit. Yes, it made her happy, but the way she scared off others was just too much. Boys wouldn't accept her feelings as she emasculated them. Girls didn't want to be friends as she was too manly for them. And on top of that, she had a mean resting bitch face, so people in general were scared of her. Until she met a girl around her age named Aoi Asahina. Aoi and Sakura met at a gathering for Japan's top youth athletes, and the two instantly hit it off. When Sakura admitted she would probably be quitting soon, Aoi urged her to keep going at it, as she could see the amount of passion she really had. She said she really admired her determination. She had even seen her in the past and was positive Sakura could be the best martial artist in Japan. They exchanged contacts and they went their separate ways. That conversation really changed Sakura. Seeing someone so interested in her and not being afraid made her heart flutter. The two of them didn't manage to meet up again as they lived so far apart. Until when Sakura received her final black belt, a recruiter from Hope's Peak Academy personally invited her to join the 78th class as the ultimate martial artist. Aoi later messaged that she was invited as the ultimate swimming pro, and they planned their next few years together as classmates for the rest of the night. Hopefully nothing bad happens. I would explain Sakura's death, but she's our first survivor! She's one of 5 that survives, but I did realize all the guys besides Makoto are dead by trial 4. Oops! Girl power! Throughout the game, Sakura tries to be a protective figure for everyone, especially Aoi. She's a voice of reason and such a gentle giant. If you have any headcanons for how she is in game, I would really love to hear, because honestly, I didn't really think of how she would be in games besides protectors, so please! For Sakura's design, I knew she had to still be buff and intimidating, but I didn't think I could draw her as extreme as the original, just based on my style. I did research a bunch on bodybuilders and try to replicate it through my own way. I think Sakura looks really cool. However, as soon as I drew her outfit, I realized you couldn't really see her muscles anymore. And that's why I'm drawing another! I hate spending ages on the body only for it to be covered by clothes. Really makes me consider not adding clothes in a not weird way. One thing I thought would be interesting is if Sakura got her scars due to the events of the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. Would it be really strange going to school and suddenly finding yourself trapped somewhere with freshly healed scars? Because how did none of them age or change in the original game? It's another reason why I decided they should be around university age, because I find that the changes aren't as drastic after 2 to 3 years in comparison to high school. I don't know, food for thought. I couldn't really find the words for it, but I wanted to show how she embraced the parts of her that made her feel the most ashamed growing up. See, growing up mixed race is a really weird experience. You never really know how to be both, so you kind of embrace one side more, at least in my case. However, Sakura doesn't really feel like she fits either, so learning to embrace both sides, I can imagine, is really important for her character. That's why I really wanted her to wear this really pretty dress covered in these patterns called Niho Piata, or shark teeth, which represents strength and protection. I also added this boa. I saw a couple photos and it gives off fancy and wanting to look more put together, but it was mainly a reference to a black belt without it being a literal one. Maybe it's because she subconsciously wanted to cover her muscles. Yeah. I really wanted to keep her design relatively simple for a few reasons. It contrasts with Celeste, draws more attention to the patterns, and because you gotta show off those muscles, maybe I should have drawn even more muscle. I don't know, what do you guys think? Final thing I'll yap about is how I wanted to draw her face. I didn't know how to balance her features. I decided I wanted her to have a softer jawline, but she still has defined cheekbones. Along with this, her facial features are a lot more Pacifica, besides her eyes, which I try to draw as monolids as she is part Japanese. Finally, I originally gave her dark brown hair, but it just didn't feel like Sakura. I couldn't pinpoint why. When I looked at her original design, I knew I had to give her her white hair back. Sometimes taking a step back and addressing issues is a really good idea. And that's Sakura! What a journey it was for me to work on her, but I think she's still really cute. Definitely makes me want to study anatomy more. Future video idea. I would love if you guys gave me feedback for Sakura in particular, as I feel like I could do so much more with her story, because I know she's quite a beloved character in the fandom. But with that, let's see the designs.
A body has been discovered!
Woo! This is the end of the video! I know these two look quite different to the originals, but I really do like how they came out. Celestia in particular. Thank you all so much for watching until the end. Next video is going to be me redesigning my rip-off My Hero Academia world. Oh god. I've been really wanting to do more OC content, as it's what really makes me happy. And also it doesn't require as much brain power to write stories for, surprisingly enough. By the way, I just started streaming again. Catch me either here or on my Twitch, twitch.tv/likeanalpacasir, and enjoy the silliness of me and my chat. If you'd like to see more, consider subscribing and liking the video. And of course, if you have the money, you should look at my Patreon and VGen. Even following for free helps so much. Currently, my jobs aren't really giving me shifts, so I'm struggling to pay rent. Speaking of Patreon though, I'll be reading out the names of my YouTube and Patreon members. Thank you so much to Kipwin and Glitchcrown for supporting me. With that all out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. If you managed to get to this point, put a card emoji into your comment to prove you watched until the end. Make sure you look after yourself so you can be happy and healthy for the next video. See ya! XOXO Alpaca.